I paid 30% of my salary for his gift. He made me reimburse it. Now his PS5 has more boundaries than I do, and our families plan the wedding. A little bit of backstory and timelines here. I'm 26 female. My engineer boyfriend, 29 male, earns about 10 times more than me. We split the trip bills equally, but he usually pays for dates in the city. That one sentence already sounds like I'm building a case, doesn't it? I wish I didn't have to. I wish I could just say, we met, we clicked, we're good, and that would be the whole post. But my head's a junk drawer of receipts and texts, and little humiliations I told myself were mature compromises. I've been gaslighting myself for months, no years, and the way I keep track of it is timelines, numbers, those stupid little details. You'll see why. We first started dating in October 23. Long distance for a while. It was a weird, floaty honeymoon where everything feels like it's happening underwater. Lots of voice notes. I'd text, "Call me when you can," and he'd say, "Tonight for sure." And then it would be midnight, and I was crying into my pillow because he fell asleep with his parents watching TV. I missed him so goddamn much that it turned me into someone I hate. Needy, prickly, petty. I'd say, "Let's talk just 10 minutes." And when he didn't, I'd pick a fight just to make him respond. If you've ever been starved for attention, you know exactly what I mean. Rage is the only thing that gets a guaranteed reply. That didn't last long. He said I made him feel like he had to choose between me and his family, that I was creating drama, that I was testing him. Then he broke up with me over the phone. That little pause before he said the words still stings. He inhaled, and I knew it was coming like a wave about to smack me in the face. "I think we should end this." After that, I unraveled in a very respectable, Instagrammable way. Spiritual journey, yoga mat, incense, long walks without my phone. I'm not mocking it, some of it helped. But mostly I was trying to glue myself back together because the breakup scraped off whatever self-esteem I had. Not the rom-com kind of heartbreak, more like a quiet, nauseating hum in the background. I started avoiding people because everything felt like proof I wasn't good enough. I convinced myself that being alone was noble. Stoic. I told friends I was recalibrating. Half the time I was just sitting on my bedroom floor staring at a wall, convinced my life was a test, and I was failing it. May 24, he pops up in my Instagram DMs like a ghost that knows your lock screen password. I hadn't blocked him. My therapist would probably have some notes about that. I told myself it was because of something I read. The only way out of the labyrinth of suffering is to forgive. Looking for Alaska, right? It sounds profound when you type it under sunrise. In practice, it looked like me leaving a door unlocked and acting surprised when the wind blew it open. "Hey," he wrote. "Just hey. Not how are you or I'm sorry." I stared at the dot that said he was typing. Then it disappeared, then came back. Been a while. "How are you?" I should have ignored it. I didn't. I said I was good. He asked if we could catch up. I said no. He said just coffee. I said maybe. He said, "I'll meet you where you feel comfortable." Very respectful. Very patient. I agreed to see him. I justified it like this. I'd moved on enough to be immune, maybe not healed, but I could be in the same room without combusting. Also, and I hate this about me, I wanted to prove to myself that I was fine, that I could stand there and not turn into the girl who begged for calls. We met at a bar near my place, lots of my friends around, buffers everywhere. He looked older, not in a bad way, just like the months put some weight on him that had nothing to do with his body. We did the small talk. He laughed a lot at nothing. He bought drinks for the table and told everyone how well he was doing at work without saying it outright. He's good at that, shiny competence, the kind that makes people nod approvingly. I didn't drink much because I didn't trust myself to be soft. We started talking a little more after that. Texts every few days. He was careful, almost apologetic without apologizing. "Thinking of you. You look happy. I miss our conversations." It was all very clean. No mess. I let myself be flattered. I let myself remember the good parts. The way he watches people when he's listening, like he's working out an equation. The way he does this half smile when he's about to roast you. The way he talks about his mom's cooking like it's a competition he's trying to win. I pretended that the way he made me feel small didn't exist because it wasn't constant. You can survive anything that isn't constant, right? You tell yourself the good is the real thing and the shitty parts are an anomaly. July 24, he asked if we could try again. He said it over dinner like he was presenting a pitch deck he'd actually thought about. He said, "I realized something while you were gone." Cue the speech. People need to change their ways for their partners sometimes. That's what relationships are for. To comfort each other. To be there. It's not just about our individual needs. He said it like he discovered gravity. I looked at this grown man telling me he just realized you're supposed to show up for someone you love, and something inside me rolled its eyes. But another part, some stubborn, lonely part, leaned in. He said he missed me when he was out doing things. I think, what would you say if you were here? He made it sound romantic. A future where I existed in his day-to-day, not just as a calendar event. He kept snoozing. I said okay. I said let's give it a try. I could hear my best friend voice in my head. Are you sure? And I bulldozed right over it. I told myself I was not a cynic, I was a builder. I would build something, and if it fell, at least I could say I tried. We eased back into it. It was better at first. He called more. He made time. He sent an Uber to pick me up on rainy nights. We cooked together, and he cleaned up without making a big thing of it. He told me he'd stop saying, "I'm too busy," as a default. He was still very efficient, measured. Everything with him has a ledger behind it, like an invisible spreadsheet where he logs who did what and when. He's money-minded, he likes to say. Calculative. I told myself that's a good trait. I genuinely appreciate people who have their finances in order. But when you love someone, you don't keep a mental receipt for every single sandwich. Or so I thought. October 24, we both have birthdays. His first. There's an ugly truth here. I felt guilty for how little I made. He earns 10 times what I do. Let that sink in. 10. I'm not careless with money. I just don't have a lot of it. He knows that. He's never rubbed it in my face, but he carries it like a fact he expects everyone to orient around. He pays for most city dates. I cover some. We split trips, it's fine. But I felt like I needed to overcompensate for taking up space at his table. So I went big on his gift. 30% of my month's pay. Do the math. It hurt. I did it anyway, because I wanted him to feel celebrated. I wanted him to feel like I wasn't some charity case girlfriend. I picked something thoughtful, something he'd wanted but never bought for himself, because he was waiting for a good deal. I was excited in the way you are when you've planned a birthday thing down to the moment. He opened it, smiled, said thank you. Then, and I will never forget the exact cadence of his voice, like he'd just thought of a brilliant hack, he said, "Would it be okay if I transfer this amount to your bank so you can buy something for your birthday?" I went cold. Something about the way he said this amount. Like love is a ledger entry and we were balancing it out. I said absolutely not. I said if you want to buy me socks with little bananas on them, I'd be thrilled. I meant it. I was already grateful for the stuff he does. Pay for dinners, insist on the Uber, whatever. I wasn't tallying. He was. We argued about it a little, and then he dropped it, and I thought, okay, we're done. We weren't. He said, okay, what if I pay for something you want from Miniso? He meant it like a compromise. It was fine, sure. Miniso had this whole Harry Potter setup, and I'm a sucker for it. He insisted. I said, okay. God help me, I thought it was sweet. The plan was to go together. Except the day comes, and he can't wake up early because he had a late night. So picture me at 8 a.m., sitting on a bench outside the store like a kid waiting for Disneyland to open. It opened at 10. I waited. I walked in and picked out my own present while he slept. I put stuff in a basket and felt weirdly proud I wasn't embarrassed to be doing it. He called as I was in line and said, "Just send me the bill," so he could pay. He did. That night, he gave me a lecture, an actual lecture, about how I could have bought those things another time instead of all at once. It's not smart to impulse buy, he said, like I wasn't talking about my own goddamn birthday present he had insisted on paying for. He killed my excitement dead, like taking a pin to a balloon and then acting surprised at the pop. I transferred him the full amount back that same night. I don't know what I meant to prove. Maybe I just didn't want anything of mine in his ledger. November 24, he got drunk with his friend and talked to me in a way that made my ears ring. Not like name-calling, but the kind of contempt that slips out when people are loose and the filters are off. "You're sensitive," he said, voice heavy. "You always need to make it about you." His friend laughed. I shut down. I let it go. I keep saying that. I let it go. I have a graveyard of let it goes. December 24, he told me he loved me. I said I loved him too. He said his parents were starting to push the marriage thing because he was getting old. He said it like a joke, but I could hear the timeline clicking into place. I pictured a house with plants and a couch he would research for 6 weeks before buying. I pictured him picking me up from work. I pictured Sunday lunch with his family, where his mom would ask me if I was eating enough and force-feed me dessert. It was all very normal. That was the lure, I think. Normalcy. Someone who wanted a future with me. I wanted that for a long time. Wanted it so hard I ignored the parts that didn't fit. January 25, we went on a beach holiday. It was nice. Lazy mornings. I read, he swam. We had stupid arguments about sunscreen and who forgot the charger. The last night, we got dressed up to go to a nicer place. We were in a taxi, holding hands, and then he snapped at me over something small like, "Why didn't you bring the jacket?" It escalated. The way fights escalate with us is like a trapdoor. 1 second you're good, next you're falling. We stepped out of the taxi, and he said, "You always ruin things." I hadn't spoken for 3 minutes. He walked ahead. I followed because what else do you do in a city you don't know? The food tasted like cardboard. I cried in the bathroom. We barely spoke the rest of the night. The next morning, I pretended it hadn't happened because I didn't want to put a black mark on the trip in the scrapbook in my head. I'm ridiculous like that. March 25, I traveled solo in India during the festivals. Not because of him. It was a trip I'd wanted to do for years. He couldn't get time off. I was excited and terrified. If you've traveled alone as a woman, you know the hyper-awareness you carry. Keys like a weapon, bag zipped twice, phone in a front pocket. He picked fights on the phone with me while I was literally wedged between strangers in a market, while I was trying to figure out a train platform, while I was already running on adrenaline and exhaustion. "Why didn't you text me back? Who are you with? I don't like it when you go off-grid." I said I was scared and I needed to concentrate. He said I was being dramatic. I let it go again like a dumb balloon. April 25, it was 1 a.m. We were walking home after drinks. I took off my heels because my feet were raw, and I'm not a masochist. His friend teased him, "Just a stupid joke. Why aren't you giving her your shoes, man?" I laughed. I said I was fine. He lost it. Started yelling at me in the middle of the street. "Why do you always have to make me look bad? Why do you make everything a scene?" He didn't offer me his shoes. I didn't want them. I wanted him to stop giving a shit about his image for once and look at me. He wouldn't shut up. His friend tried, "Bro, chill." He barked at them. I cried. A random stranger, some angel in a hoodie, handed me a tissue and a water bottle. My boyfriend watched me wipe my face with a stranger's tissue and didn't move. That's a memory I can't scrub off. I went home and slept with my face to the wall. May and June 25 are the months where the cracks got names. Kids. He wants one, I don't. We didn't just disagree. We turned it into a test of moral character. He said I was selfish. I said he was stubborn. He said, "You'll change your mind." I said, "Stop saying that." Pets. I want them. He doesn't. He said animals are messy. I said I grew up with a dog, and I'm fine. In-laws. I said I didn't want to live under the same roof as in-laws. He said, "Debatable," in that tone that makes me want to set something on fire. We decided they would live with us. We didn't decide shit. He announced a non-negotiable, and I folded because I'd already folded on so many smaller things that this felt like keeping the peace. We were on the verge of breaking up. Actually, he did break up with me one night after a long argument, and then came back the next day and said he didn't mean break up. He meant he wanted more time. He said it like the words had just gotten away from him. I said okay, because at this point, I was treating our relationship like a house I'd already paid a down payment on. You don't walk away because the roof leaks, right? You patch it and pray it doesn't rain. July 25, our families met. It was annoyingly perfect. They loved each other. My mom and his mom traded recipes. Our dads bonded over cricket. Everyone said things like, "Finally," and "It's time," and "You found a good one." They started talking about setting a date. I smiled and ate too much dessert and pretended that made me happy instead of nauseous. You know when a plan gets momentum and you stop steering? That. August 25, we went on another trip. This time he was weird about the bills. In the past, we split trips cleanly. Spreadsheets, receipts, done. This time he said not to worry about splitting. He said since I'd made a couple of bookings, hotel, and a tour, we were good, the rest was on him. He said it like a generous man waving off a small debt. I didn't like it, not because I wanted to pay, but because I knew it would come back later like a boomerang. He's a ledger guy. Nothing dissolves. It just sits there accruing interest. We argued about some dumb thing. The tour wasn't great, I was grumpy. And he brought it up. I paid for this trip, and you're not even grateful. I said I'd said thank you like 8 times. I calculate bills for a living. I can tabulate thank yous. I mentally noted every time I'd said it, and it was a stupid amount. He said it didn't feel like gratitude. I went home and took out the receipts and made a spreadsheet and sent him my share in full. You can call that petty. For me, it was self-defense. I didn't want another thing on his list titled, "What I Do For You." I thought we'd just fight and move on. I try to forget about it, like you forget about a bruise once it fades. September 25, he bought a PS5. I was happy for him. It's a big deal for guys who unwind by shooting virtual people. I get it. He was going to travel for 5 weeks for work. His roommate's girlfriend joked that I should keep the PS5 at the apartment so I could get good at the games and then beat him when he was back. Cute joke. The next morning, he texted a paragraph about how I didn't understand his excitement, and he didn't want anyone to touch the PS without him there. He used the word boundaries. Like a console is a set of vows. It triggered the hell out of me. Not the console, the fucking pattern. Everything else comes first. Devices, schedules, optics, imaginary ledgers. Me last. Me, the person who waits outside stores at 8 a.m. to buy my own present and then gets schooled on fiscal responsibility. Me, the person who gets yelled at on the street because his friend teased him. Me, the person who says thank you enough times to qualify for sainthood. So I snapped. Not at him, not yet. I snapped inside. I stopped wanting to understand him. I stopped wanting to be the cool girlfriend who gets that he's an engineer with a busy brain and a family that comes first. I stopped wanting to play by rules that kept changing to suit his comfort. I looked at my life, and it felt like a corridor where every door was his. I hated that I let it get here. I hated that my own choices dragged me this far into the muck. We only see each other on weekends because he's tired on weekdays. Except last week he went to his friend's house on a Wednesday, drank beers, played FIFA, and sent me a sleepy goodnight. I don't begrudge him fun. I begrudge the double standard. Tired for me, energy for the boys. It's a simple calculus. People make time for what they want. I was just easier to postpone. I want to break up. The marriage talks are happening. Our parents are excited. There are group chats with cake designs and venue suggestions. But I'm sitting here with a knot in my chest that refuses to dissolve, and I want to throw the whole thing away like spoiled leftovers. Is that dramatic? Maybe. I'm so tired of asking myself whether my reactions are appropriate. I'm tired of grading my own feelings on a curve. Now that you have the outline, here's the meat. Here's the stuff I didn't say out loud because I wanted to keep the peace or because I was ashamed that I stayed. He is generous in public. He pulls out his card with a flourish. People say, wow, such a gentleman. They don't see the debrief after, the budget talk. The next time you can get it, with a smile that's not mean, but definitely not warm. If you've never been with someone who accounts for everything, you might not understand why that grates. It's not about money. It's about being constantly reminded that even love has to show its receipts. You start rehearsing your contributions in your head. I booked the hotel, I brought wine, I drove, I listened to his rant about his boss for an hour, I complimented his mom's painter. You build a case like you're on trial for taking advantage. He loves saying, it's not about the amount, it's about the principle. He said that in the Miniso lecture. He said it about the trip. He said it about me being late once. It's the principle. Okay, judge. What's the principle when your girlfriend is sitting on a curb crying and a stranger's the one handing her water? What's the principle when you see her fight to stand in your life and you hand her a clipboard and say, can you fill out this form in triplicate? I used to argue back more. Then I learned to ration myself because he's better at arguing. He's the type who will debate the wording of your complaint until you forget what the original point was. If I say, "You made me feel small," he says, "When did I say you're small?" If I say, "I felt unloved when you didn't call," he says, "I told you I was sleeping. You don't trust me." Then, the kicker, you need to work on how you communicate. It's like arguing with a mirror that tells you your face is wrong. He drinks socially, not a lot, but when he does, that's when the respect leaks out of him. The November night, his friend made a joke about how I'm intense. He laughed and said, "She's extra, bro." It sounds harmless typed out. It wasn't. It was that tone grown men use when they're tired of their girlfriends' voices. I drove home with him, and he kept a hand on my knee like that made it okay. I stared at it like it was someone else's hand. He didn't notice because he was telling me about a problem at work he was very proud of solving. I nodded at the right moments and knew I'd be doing the calculus again later. Is this worth a fight? Is this worth another lecture about how he does so much and I'm always upset? When he brought up marriage in December, he framed it like a team decision. "We should think about a timeline," he said. "I don't want to lose you." I remember feeling two things at once, a warm flush and a cold dread. I wanted the idea of marriage, being chosen, being part of family. I wanted the brunches and the stupid couple photos and the constant presence. I also knew it would mean living under the same roof as his parents, because the debatable thing turned into a we decided thing without my full consent. And if you've ever lived with people who think you stole their son, you know it's a minefield. I imagined waking up every day and negotiating about curtains. I imagined, "Why aren't you eating more?" followed by, "Why are you spending on X?" followed by, "Don't wear that to the temple." And my spine wanted to walk itself out the door. The fight on the beach trip in January wasn't about the jacket. It was about me becoming the person who's always wrong for wanting a different rhythm. He was fully in his element. Itinerary, timings, reviews. He booked us a highly rated place for the last dinner. I wanted to stop by the shore first, watch the water for a minute. He said we'd be late. I said 5 minutes. He tightened his jaw. In a taxi, I made a joke about us being middle-aged and boring. He said, "I planned things so they're nice for you. Can you just go with the flow for once?" I laughed because that's ironic. Me go with the flow. He snapped. The words, "You always ruin things," weren't about the jacket. They were about me not fitting into his carefully plotted line graph for the evening. The rest of the trip was me apologizing by being small. The solo India trip in March showed me another thing. He doesn't like when I have a life that doesn't orbit him. He says he does. He says, "I'm proud of you." He posts a story and writes "so brave" with a heart. Then he calls and picks a fight about why I didn't share my live location. He says it's because he worries. Worry dressed like control looks a lot like love if you're not careful. I was careful and I still got lost. The April Street scene is the one that should have done it. I replay it. I've run it through so many edits where I do the right thing in a moment, where I put my shoes back on and walk away, where I turn around and say, "You're not allowed to talk to me like that." Instead, I cried. I stood on the sidewalk with mascara bleeding down my face, and I cried while he told me I was performing. A stranger was kinder than the man who says he wants to marry me. That moment solidified something hard and bitter inside me. I didn't change my behavior right away, but the worship went out of me. Whatever pedestal I had him on, it cracked, and he stumbled down to the level of any guy yelling at his girlfriend at 1 a.m. like she's a misbehaving child. May/June, the kids' conversation was war. If you want to watch two compatible people turn into enemies, bring up kids when one wants them and the other doesn't. I didn't say never. I said I don't want any. That distinction matters to me because it leaves room for future me to surprise me. He didn't hear nuance. He heard a threat to his future. He said things like legacy and family duty and "you'll be a great mom." He opened his phone and showed me a photo of a toddler he knows, and his face softened and I wanted to crawl out of my skin. He said, "It'll be different when it's ours." And I said, "You're not hearing me." He said, "This is a deal breaker for me." And I said, "Okay then." And he broke up with me. Then he came back the next day and said he was just asking for time. You can't just ask for time with a breakup. But I took it because it was easier than unraveling the entire relationship over a bedrock difference I had been clear about since day one. That's on me. By July, our families were in. Once the aunties get involved, it's like a production. Clothes, gold, dates, venues, pundits, caterers. I smiled through so much of it that my face hurt. He was giddy in a contained way. He doesn't gush, but he was present. He took me ring shopping. He said, "Don't worry about the price." Then, over dinner, he asked if we could set a budget for the wedding and make sure both sides contribute equally. He was not wrong. It's sensible. It also felt like another ledger. I said yes, because pushing back on sensible makes you sound unhinged. August's trip was supposed to be a break from all that. It was nice in parts. He held my hand in crowded markets. He bought me a pastry with too much cream because he knows I'll lick the frosting off like a 5-year-old. He made me laugh in the hotel when the AC rattled like a tractor. Then the fight. Then the "I paid for this trip" line like a wedge. I can't explain the particular humiliation of being told you're ungrateful while standing in a towel drying your hair. Shampoo still inside your ear. I sent him a spreadsheet that night from my phone. He didn't ask for it. I thought I was winning self-respect. All I was doing was removing one more excuse for him to deny my feelings later. "You can't accuse me of being ungrateful. Here's proof" is such a sad sentence to type. The PS5 thing at the end of September was the straw that broke something I'd been balancing on my back for months. He texted at 8 a.m. "Don't let anyone touch the PS." I know, roommate's girlfriend joked, but I don't want it used without me. Then a follow-up. "You don't understand how excited I am for this. Please respect my boundaries." I stared at it. I thought about the 10 texts I'd sent over the last month about big stuff, my job insecurity, my mom's health scare, an invitation to my friend's art show, and how he hadn't managed to come to the show because he was exhausted, how he sent a thumbs up to the health update, how he said, "You'll figure it out" about the job. And here he was, awake at 8 a.m., deeply engaged about a console. The disrespect wasn't the rule, it was the exception, but the priorities were clear. If I'm honest, they always have been. I know how this sounds. People will say, "He's not that bad." Some will say, "You sound exhausting." Honestly, both are true. He's not a villain. He's not throwing things or cheating. He's an engineer who loves his family and whose default setting is efficiency. He earned his money. He's careful with it. He thinks about the future like a set of boxes to check. He genuinely believes he's doing the right thing by being honest about non-negotiables. He's kind to waiters. He texts my dad on his birthday. He's funny when he's relaxed. I've seen him be gentle. I've seen him hold a baby and melt a little. He's complicated. I'm also complicated. I'm anxious. I need reassurance. I want spontaneous warmth. I want someone to throw me a flower from a street vendor and not put it in the ledger. I want to be allowed to be messy without being told I'm a scene. I want to make choices about my own body without a debate team in my living room. I want to get drunk and take off my shoes and not be yelled at for embarrassing someone. I want to be loved in practice, not just in principle. We fight in loops. We've had the same fight with different props so many times I could script it. Me, it hurt me when you said X. Him, I didn't say X. Me, you did. Him, I said Y. You heard X. Me, I felt hurt. Him, you always feel hurt. It's exhausting. Me, I'm trying to tell you so we can fix it. Him, I'm tired. I do so much. You don't see it. Then I list the things I see. He says that's the bare minimum. I say, you want credit for not being terrible. He says nothing for 3 beats and then says, this is why I can't talk to you when you're like this. We sleep angry. In the morning, he kisses my forehead and says, let's not ruin the day, and I nod because I want a good day like a dog wants a treat. The day after the PS5 text, I sat down and wrote a list. Not a pros and cons, that's useless. A list of moments I cannot forgive myself for minimizing. The tissue from the stranger. The walk in the sand we didn't take because of the dinner reservation. The Miniso lecture. The time he said, I don't want to live with pets, and I nodded like he had decreed a law. The spreadsheet I sent at midnight to prove I'm not a freeloader. The boundaries for a console, but not for my heart. I called him that night. I didn't want to do the thing where we argue ourselves in circles and then take a break and then pretend we're okay because our moms are talking about cake flavors. I wanted to talk like we were the only two people in it because we are. He picked up on the second ring. He was at home. I could hear the hum of his AC. Hey, he said. Neutral. Can we talk? I said, now. Yes. He sighed. Okay. I can't do this anymore, I said. It came out clear. I surprised myself. No preamble. No edge. Just the truth placed between us like a glass of water. What? I can't marry you, I said. I can't move forward like this. I love you, but this relationship is making me small and mean and tired. I don't want to be this person. Silence. Then a laugh. Not unkind, more like disbelief escaping. Is this about the PS5? He said. I closed my eyes. It's not about the PS5. What is it about then? Everything. He took a breath. You're being dramatic. I almost laughed. That word. If my life were a drinking game and dramatic was the cue, I'd have cirrhosis. Maybe, I said, but I'm done. You want to throw away everything because, what? Because I asked you not to use my console? Because I don't want pets? Because I yelled once when I was drunk? Because I want my parents with us? He was listing it like I was some fussy princess impervious to reason. He was stacking bricks of not that bad to build a wall around the obvious. Because you don't like me, I said. He scoffed. That's ridiculous. I love you. I know you love me, I said. But you don't like me. You don't like who I am. You want me smaller, more efficient, less messy, less me. You want your life and me as an add-on, not something you actually make room for. You want me to be grateful and malleable and low maintenance. You want me to be easy. Everyone wants easy, he said, almost gently. I don't, I said. I want real. I want a fight that ends with us closer, not a tally of who lost. He went quiet. For a second, I thought maybe we were going to actually talk like adults who loved each other and wanted to understand. Then he said, so that's it? You're breaking up? You know what this will do to our parents. I know, I said. I know it will be messy and embarrassing, and people will say I'm ungrateful. They'll say you're a catch. You are. Not for me. He said my name like a warning. Be sensible. I think I finally am. He started talking about logistics, rings, deposits, cancellations. He went straight into engineer mode. I let him run through the list because it's what he does when he's trying not to feel. Then he said, we can fix this. We can take a break. We've been on a break, pretending we're together for months, I said. I can't anymore. He said, very quietly, you'll regret this. Not a threat, a prediction. Maybe, I said, but I regret staying more. He hung up after saying, I need time. I turned my phone off because I didn't trust myself not to apologize for telling the truth. The fallout started immediately. His mom called mine. My aunt called me. My friend sent me 40 heart emojis and 3 "Are you sure?" texts. I wrote back, no, but I'm doing it. That's the ugliest, truest part. I'm not sure. I could list you every awful thing he's done, and I could list you every lovely thing. I could tell you that his hand on the small of my back makes me feel safe, and I could tell you that that safety feels conditional. Both are true. Life with him would be stable. People would approve. We would have nice plates and a car with correctly inflated tires. We would also have a steady stream of small humiliations that I would try to swallow like vitamins until I choked. He texted the next day. We can talk tonight? I didn't respond. I went to work and did my job like a robot. I came home and sat on the floor again, like after the first breakup, except I wasn't staring at the wall. I was staring at the version of me that bends until she's a shape he can handle. I didn't like her. I wanted to protect the girl who waited at 8 a.m. outside a store for her own present, because she thought that's what accommodating looks like. I wanted to tell her she's allowed to want better. Here's the part where I ask you the question I came here to ask, because I'm not immune to the pull of strangers telling me I'm not crazy. Would it make me an asshole for breaking up now? With the wedding talks, and the families, and the deposits, and the WhatsApp groups, and the cake tastings? Am I wrong? My head says no. My spine says no. my soft, terrified heart says maybe. It says maybe because he's not a monster. Because he tried in his way. Because he did show up sometimes. Because life isn't a clean split between assholes and angels. Because love isn't a debit/credit, and yet we made it into one, and that's not entirely his fault. I kept paying the bill without asking if I even wanted the meal. But here's my gut. I would rather be called dramatic for leaving than be quietly erased by staying. I would rather disappoint our parents now than disappoint the person I'll be in 5 years who has a kid she didn't want and a dog she was not allowed to adopt and a pair of in-laws she can't escape. I would rather be the asshole today than the ghost of myself in a house where everything is practical and nothing is kind. We had a conversation last night in person because avoiding him felt like cheating. I went over. He was polite. He gave me water. He gestured for me to sit, and I stood because I didn't want to sink into a couch that had molded to his body over 3 years. He said, "I've been thinking," and I braced. "I could try harder," he said. "I can be more thoughtful. I could do the romantic stuff you want. I can get you flowers." I laughed. I couldn't help it. Not cruelly. Just, a flower isn't the fix. "It's not flowers," I said. "I can apologize more," he said. "You could stop giving me things to forgive," I said, and immediately felt mean. He flinched barely. He said, "You're not perfect either." "I know," I said. "I'm hard work, but I don't want to be work for you. I want to be your person." "You are," he said. "You're my person. Then why do I feel like a project?" He didn't answer. He stared at the PS5 box like it might whisper a solution. He said, "I love you." "I love you too," I said, and we both looked at each other like people about to put down a pet, because it hurts less than letting it live in pain. We argued a little more. He tried to catch me in contradictions. "You said you want stability." I said, "Not this kind." He said, "You're making a mistake." I said, "I make my own." He said, "I hope you don't regret it." I said, "I already regret waiting." He asked, "Is this about kids? Is that the real reason?" I said, "It's a reason. But even if we agreed on kids, the way you handle me is the problem." "Handle?" He repeated it like it tasted bad. "Yeah," I said. "Handle. Like I'm a situation." He rubbed his face. He said, "I hate how you tell the story." "I know," I said. "So do I. Because there's a version where he's a guy doing his best, and I'm a bottomless pit of wants. There's a version where I'm a saint and he's a jerk. Neither is true. The truth is a mess between them. But my experience, my memory, is the only one I can tell, and in my memory I'm always angling for his attention while he checks the time." He said, "So what now?" "Now we call it," I said. "We tell our families. We return what needs returning. We unfollow or mute or whatever we have to do not to bleed out slowly." He nodded like he understood the logistics. He always understands logistics. Feelings, not so much. He said, "Can I hug you?" I said yes because I'm weak or human or both. He hugged me, and I remembered every reason I wanted this. I pulled away because wanting isn't proof anything works. I left. I cried in the Uber, and the driver asked if I was okay, and I said, "Yeah," and he said, "Okay," and turned the radio louder like a kindness. I got home and ate cereal out of the box and read old texts like a creep. I found a voice note from August where he said, "I love that you're stubborn," and I laughed because he doesn't. Not the way I'm stubborn now. Today I blocked him. I told my mom. She's disappointed, but she also hugged me and said, "Better now than later." My aunt sent me 3 prayer hands and a "God has a plan," which I will accept because I need something soft around me right now. His sister texted me, "Are you okay?" And I cried harder because she's sweet and she doesn't deserve this either. I told her I'm sorry. She said, "You don't have to be." She said, "He's not easy." And something in me unclenched because someone who knows him said it, not just me screaming into the void of Reddit. I'm writing this here because anonymity is the only place I can be honest without 30 people calling to tell me to reconsider. Because maybe some of you have been at the edge and stepped back or stepped off, and you can tell me which hurt less. Because I'm trying to hold my line, and my line is wobbly. Because I keep hearing his voice saying, "Be sensible," and I want someone to tell me that breaking my own heart on purpose can be sensible too. I'm not looking for excuses to go back. I'm not looking for permission to leave. I guess I'm looking for witnesses. People who can say, yes, we saw it too. We saw how you waited at 8 a.m. at a store for your own present and called it love. We saw how you got yelled at on a street for taking your shoes off because he was more embarrassed than worried. We saw how you fought about kids and in-laws and the dog, and every fight wasn't about the thing, it was about power. We saw how you sent spreadsheets to pay your share so you wouldn't owe ingratitude like rent. We saw how a console got more boundaries than your heart. If you think I'm the asshole, say it. Maybe I need that. Maybe I need to hold the mirror and swallow the parts that aren't flattering. But I'm pretty sure I'm just a person who decided that being loved like a negotiation is worse than being single with a cheap bottle of wine and a playlist I made for myself. I'm pretty sure I'm a person who wants to stop performing gratitude like a job. I'm pretty sure I'm a person who wants to be chosen every day, not scheduled in for weekends. He texted me right before I blocked him. I hope you find someone who gives you everything you want. There was a tiny edge of insult there, like I'm greedy. Maybe I am. Maybe wanting respect and tenderness and ease and a dog that sheds on the couch and a partner who can say, I'm sorry I hurt you, without turning it into a TED Talk about fiscal discipline. That's greedy. If so, I'll starve a little until I find it. I'm going to log off now and call my friend who will tell me I did the right thing, and then we will go buy cheap sheets for my bed because mine smell like him and I can't keep waking up inhaling his ghost. I'm going to block his mom because she will send me recipes like nothing happened. I'm going to eat something green and take a shower and cry, and then maybe I'll sleep. Tomorrow I'll wake up and not check my phone for a schedule. I'll take a walk and not count the steps like I'm earning rest. I'll look at dogs on the street and not flinch because I'm allowed to want one again. If there's a moral, it's this. If you find yourself keeping score in a relationship, check if the game is rigged. If you find yourself explaining your feelings like a budget proposal, you're in a board meeting, not a partnership. If a stranger is kinder to you on a sidewalk at 1 a.m. than the man who says he loves you, don't wait for him to realize anything. You're not a ledger. You're a person, and I'm finally acting like one.